So I'd like to start by introducing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Portal Development Team. These are the aggregators, not to be confused with a punk band. Brian Tejan, who lives in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Bailey Eichel is from Oak Harbor, Washington. Joe Moore resides in Salt Lake City, Utah. Tate Bronigan hails from Bismarck, North Dakota. And Matt Heller and I live in Bozeman, Montana. Quick overview or outline, I should say, for today's webinar or tour. We're going to have John Carlson and Matt Kales, who are the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service coordinators for the Grasslands and Sagebrush ecosystem teams, respectively. They're going to provide a quick kind of big picture of the teams, as well as what the Fish and Wildlife Service is doing in terms of grassland and sagebrush conservation. Then I will provide a quick overview of the portal, followed by Matt Heller, who's going to talk about maps and data. And following Matt, Tate will provide an overview of the content library. And then we'll wrap things up with your feedback and questions if you have some. So chances are we'll get done early. That's our goal, so you guys can get on with your day. So Matt and John Carlson, would you like to take the stage?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. John, go ahead. I'll follow.
Okay, hold on 1 minute here. Yeah, welcome everybody. As Mary mentioned, both Matt and I are the coordinators for our respective ecosystem teams. I am the Grassland ecosystem team coordinator, and Matt coordinates the Sagebrush ecosystem team. And the portal that we're going to be demonstrating today was developed that so each of these teams could easily access geospatial products and other resources that were developed internally, and then also be able to share those with non-federal practitioners on this forum. So we wanted to make this stuff available for anybody working within these ecosystems. And the portal's meant to be a value added sort of a product, in that we don't want to repeat things that are presented in other places, but maybe direct people to those sources of other information. And also we wanted this to be complementary to those other platforms where you may find geospatial information. And along those lines, if anybody on the call is interested in sharing data products on the portal, please do get in touch with Mary or Matt. And I think that's about all I have from the big picture overview for the portal. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, John. Really quickly, I first want to thank the aggregators, or development team, as we were prior calling them. It's a really great group of people to work with, very proactive, very talented. And so we appreciate everything they've done to get us to this point. And I want to echo what John said. You know, this is a homegrown effort, but the whole impetus here is for you, our external partners. In both Sage and Grass, the service, certainly since we constituted these teams in 2019, we set out with the express idea that we're not going it alone. We never have, and we certainly never will, if people like John and I and the aggregators have our way. The whole point of these teams is to build on the work that service folks have developed previously with all of you, our external partners at the local scale, and aggregate that up to the biome level, develop new tools, deliver them, share them, step them down. And so for the Sagebrush side of the house, that's really the kind of stuff that we're looking forward to sharing with you all as early as July. Those of you that have been involved with or are familiar with the pending Sagebrush conservation design work, co-led by WAFWA and a really diverse group of partners. Hopefully we'll have that published and available for everybody to kind of access and peel back starting in July. Those of you who are familiar with our work in Sage know we're very busy right now trying to put our first slate of bipartisan infrastructure law projects on the ground to the tune of nearly $20 million in investments over the next 2 years. A lot of information to support those investments, but also to share the outcomes. That's the kind of stuff that we want to be able to make available to all of you, all your networks as we're going forward. And lastly, you know, there can be no such thing as too much communication, in my opinion. Certainly in Sagebrush, I won't speak for Grass, but there are so many partners, so many cooks in the kitchen, that we think that having at least one dedicated place to share out this information in a sort of established and concrete way, hopefully will clear up any kind of disconnects or miscommunications that by definition we might encounter. So again, my thanks to everybody who got us here. My thanks to everybody for taking the time today, and look forward to continuing to populate the portal with good stuff for everybody.
Thanks, you guys. All right, I'm going to share my screen again and start the tour. So if you haven't logged into, not logged into, if you haven't opened up the portal, we had the link in the webinar announcement, which is fine, but I'm just going to go over like the homepage and the basic structure of it and some other things. So the portal is developed in ArcGIS Hub, which is a cloud platform for sharing open data. It allows for integration of interactive web resources such as maps, apps, story maps, dashboards, experiences. We're also able to add documents to this portal if we want to be able to share them. So it's basically items that have been produced in ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS. But as I'll show you in a few minutes, we can add other things by just directly linking to them. We are in the early stages of development, so the arrangement and look of the portal may change over time. This site is a very simple structure. It consists of 5 pages. There's the homepage, which we're on now, the Grassland resources page, Sagebrush resources page, the content library, which houses everything, all the content, or I should say the resources in the portal, and then we have a contact us page. But there's a sign in here, but it's a public facing site, so you don't have to sign in. This is for folks who, work in the background or need access to ArcGIS Online to do things. We did produce a short introductory video. It's a 6-minute video that folks can come and watch to get a abbreviated version of this. You guys are getting the deluxe version today. So I'm just going to go through section by section on the homepage. So we start off with the strategic habitat conservation maps. These were developed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for kind of focusing on where the service could highlight their work or highlight areas where they can implement conservation activities or actions. We have a map for the grasslands and then one for the sagebrush. And I won't even open these up because Matt Heller is going to give you a lot of detail about them when he's up. Next, we have this section called Highlights from Around the Biomes. This is kind of a new section, but again, we're just going to update it with new resources that we think should kind of get front and center as they become available. So, for example, we have a text box here on the left with the USGS's collaborative work on invasive annual grasses. We have the announcement, and then we have a link to those products at USGS. They're not products that we really can add to the portal, but obviously that's the whole thing. We want to be able to provide links to external resources as well as the stuff that's made in ArcGIS Online. Secondly, we have a couple of story maps, and I just want to quickly open one to show you how this works. So these are the story maps. I think everybody knows are made in ArcGIS. One thing to note here, you get some details on who created it, a summary. You can click on the full details button if you're interested. But I wanted to show you that this is a story map, just so you get a feel for how these ArcGIS Online products, what they are, because they all do different things. And I know a lot of people are familiar with story maps, but then there's some like web applications and other things, experiences builder and things like that are also in this portal. And so to get back, if you open up something in the portal, you can use your browser back button, of course, or else you can click on the little logo in the upper left-hand corner. So we'll scroll back down. A couple other things, you can add graphics. So here's an infographic, but it also links to the Southwest Montana Sagebrush partnerships. And we can also embed videos. Unfortunately, you can only embed established videos. You can't embed the whole thing. You actually just provide a link to either Vimeo, YouTube, or Facebook. But at least we can add the videos. The site is not like a real website because, again, it's kind of built more for the geospatial products and the data sharing. And then lastly, on the homepage, we have an invitation to share resources if you're interested and our contact information. So I'm going to hop up to the Grassland page. And I'm not sorry, Matt Kales, but I'm not going to go to the Sagebrush page because the Grassland and Sagebrush resource pages are almost identical now, except of course they're relevant to the resource. So please explore the Sagebrush page when you have a chance. So we start actually both pages with the biome on an interactive map. So you can play with this, do what you like. Anyways, it shows the whole biome for the central grasslands. The next section, we have our interactive maps and apps. The map on the left is the same one that was on the home page. It's for the grasslands. Because it's grassland relevant, of course, we'll put it on the grassland page also. And that's what Matt's going to talk more about. The one thing I'd like to show you, we have the Central Grasslands Roadmap Interactive. They built this. Again, I want to open this because this is a little different. It looks like a story map, but it's not. This is built in what's called, I think it's called Experience Builder. They're calling it application, the web experience. And so this is more of like an interactive map, but it's a little different than other interactive maps. And maybe Matt Heller might be able to explain that later. Again, so you can, click on things and look, there's legends and layers that you can examine or display and then look at. So I'm going to hop back to the oops, went to the home page. Sorry, if I'm going too fast. Okay, so we're back to the grassland page. This next item, the rangeline analysis platform, here's another example of something not built in ArcGIS Online. This was built in some other platform, I don't know what, but if you click on it, we provide a link so users can get there. It opens up a Google map and then you can select all these cool things to look at vegetation measurements, etc. So I just wanted to show you how the different products are displayed on the portal. Next, we have a section on searching for resource. Of course, you can hit the search button at the top. If you come in, you can go directly to the content library. But one thing, or you can type in a term here. Let's say if we wanted to type in fish, tagged items appear in this list. And then you can, hit a return and get into the content library and learn more about those resources. I'd like to point out that right now we have 4 categories represented by 4 icons. So these icons represent aggregations of resources that are tagged. We go in there and we tag them and then they're aggregated. So if we're interested in looking at species, we can click on the bird and that brings us to the content library with all the results, one of 20 results anyways, of 31 results that are tagged with the terms that we use for tagging. And Tate's going to talk a lot more about the content library. So I'm going to hit my browser button and get back to the Grassland page. Like I said, we're just starting out this portal. So we'll have more categories over time as we collect more resources. We can start aggregating them and tagging them and giving them terms. So then you can just come back here and click on a term to get all those related resources. Next, we have a link to the science applications science projects. These are supported by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service related to grasslands. Therefore, they were selected to support strategic habitat conservation work of the service as well as the services partners. So I'm not going to do it, but if you click on this link, it'll take you to a new browser window and it pops up is the project tracking system. And in that project tracking system, you can use filters to narrow down a search. You can read about project summaries. You can look at deliverables. When you click on this link from the Grassland page, it's going to show, it has it already pre-filtered to show all the grassland projects. Whereas on the Sagebrush page, if you click on the link on that page, it shows all the Sagebrush projects. So, but you can reset that filter to look at everything at one time. So it's kind of fun to play around with and explore. And then lastly, we have web resources for each of the the biomes, grasslands, and sagebrush. And these are lists of really, most of them are websites that we want to highlight because most of them are our partners in some form or another. And it's a website. So obviously it's not an individual item that we can add to the portal or link to. So we just thought these would be very helpful to have, and this will be modified over time. So I'm going to hand it over to Matt Heller, and he can talk about the maps and data.
Great. Well, thank you, Mary. Let me move that thumbnail image there. Guessing y'all can see my screen. Yeah, I'll discuss two of the interactive maps on the portal and how to access the geospatial layers. So I'm at the portal homepage right now, and I'm going to scroll down to the Grassland geospatial layer visualizations link. There's links all over this for this portal site to get here, but this is the one I'm going to choose. So right away, I like to minimize this more info pane on the left by hovering over this little icon, more info, and closing that. And right away, we have an initial splash screen. And that mentions, just like Mary said, that this is built within ArcGIS Online. And then one other important note is that we say that this map is designed for visualization purposes and data sharing with a broad scaled conservation focus. So we also have some helpful tips and the old disclaimer. So I'm going to go ahead and click the checkbox and then click the OK button. So like any interactive map, we have pan and zoom options up here. So that's pretty standard. And then we have 5 tools on the upper left that I'll go through from left to right. There's the standard base map tool. We have 28. There's 28, I think, base maps to choose from. And then there's the add data tool. And this is a tool that could probably be really useful. If users want to search on the entire world of the ArcGIS Online, they can enter in a search criteria. So I'm going to type in critical habitat, and we get a hit on critical habitat. Again, this is searching all of ArcGIS Online, not just the Fish and Wildlife Service, but we're gonna click on the Fish and Wildlife Service critical habitat layer. So from here, many of the layers of pop-ups are available. And here, once I click the pop-up, I can browse the pop-up results by the little arrows in the upper right of the pop-up window. So that's kind of useful to dive in there. I'm going to remove that layer. And then advanced users can use the URL tab or the file tab to load their own data or web map services. That's pretty useful. Okay. Moving on to the draw tool. So the draw tool is very handy for marking up or redlining a map. You can see here there are many different draw options or draw modes. I'm not going to go into every one. But what I will do is select the polygon one, and I'm going to change the color and turn on the show measurements. So if I start clicking a polygon and stop the polygon, well, you see we have our measurements shown, and we have we drew a polygon. So pretty exciting. But then we can also add in some text. So let's say we add in the text study area, and we can add that annotation anywhere we want. So we could, in theory, print this, and that could be used as a quick figure map or just some other informative map. So that's, I think that's pretty useful. Now going farther to the right here, we have a measure tool. That's again standard, measuring area, distance, or location. I'm not going to go through the details of that. And then we'll end up with a print tool. So there's a lot of quirks with print tools, but this is actually a pretty good one, I would say. And I'm going to check landscape. I'm going to enter in a map title. We'll call it Matt's map. And I'm going to accept the default format of file format of PDF. And then for the author, I'm going to type in Matt. And for a copyright date, we'll just today. So this is some especially basic customization options, but it gives you a little bit more flexibility. So it's can be useful. And then when that's done cooking, we can click the PDF file that gets results, and we see the map here. We've got the title, we've got the layer, and we have a little bit of subtext here for the author and copyright date. So that's so all these tools that I just showed, they're pretty standard functionality, but we thought they might be useful here. So moving on, going to the upper right, we have the legend button This simply shows the symbology for any layer that is visible here. So if we had 30 layers visible on the map, we would see 30 layers in the legend and all the symbology. And then there we are moving on to the right here is the layers button, where we can do your typical turn on and off layers. And then there's some other interaction too. So that we'll get into that. So this layers is very useful. This layers button is very useful. It can lead users to get the metadata and the source data. And I'll talk about more about this in a moment. So we've grouped the layers into different expandable and contractible panes, or panels, whatever you want to call them. And then again, there's the typical map functionality to turn on and off layers. And I'm going to turn on the PFW focus areas for this example, and the northern headwaters restoration priorities layers. And if you click on the layer names and or the subheadings, you also get the symbology, so you don't have to jump to the legend every single time. But yeah, let's go ahead and zoom into eastern Montana and western North Dakota. Now, each of these layers also has this icon that I don't know what you call it. It's 3 dots, 3 horizontal dots. And I'm not going to go through each one of these functional options here. But what I will do, one that I like, especially since we have layers on top of layers quite often, is the transparency feature. You can see we can slide these at will to set the transparency. And then there's also the show item details. And for that, let's jump to the Sagebrush map here. We'll give the Sage some love here. So I click the icon in the upper left to go back to the portal homepage. And I'm going to jump to the map, the Sagebrush geospatial layer visualizations link. And I'm going to minimize that more info pane there. And looks like this is taking a second to load. Okay, come on. Let's go ahead and refresh that. Oh boy. This has never happened to me before, honestly. We're gonna, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna minimize that more info pane. I'm gonna go ahead and yes and okay. And I'm gonna bring up the legend, the layers again. And I'm gonna bring up the SOBS, Sagebrush Obligate Birds layer and Annual Herbaceous Matrix layer. And I'll show you the symbology there. So that's that layer. But what I'm going to go for again is that 3 dots icon, and I'm going to go to the show item details page. So I'm not going to go through and explain each layer here in these maps, but we can all use the show item details to feature to go to the item's source data information, also known as metadata. So if the data was produced by the Fish and Wildlife Service, it's likely to be in the format we're showing here on the screen. So, and it's also, this information it'll look a little bit different, but the content will be there in the content library. And Tate will go over that here in a moment, how to search on that. So again, we have the summary and description, and whenever possible, us on the development team, we also added a link to the file-based data, that downloadable data. So in this particular example, it links to ScienceBase. We have a lot of our data products on ScienceBase, some of it on ServCat also. And this, so you can scroll down and get to the data. In this case, is a zip file to download. There's all the whatever flavor of metadata you want here, that's shown. And then we also have the credits and the contact information. So if you want to you'll go ask for more detail, we have that contact information too. So this file-based data is useful for all those advanced users that have desktop GIS software. I'm going to close that link. I'm going to close this link. And yeah, and if you want even more metadata, you can click the metadata button. So so that wraps up this section of the mapping section, but we encourage, I will say we encourage the sharing of all the data tied to this portal. We hope to get the most mileage out of this data as possible. We do have ties to other collaborative efforts going on. Some of our data is also configured with the USGS web catalog SageDat. Some of you, might be very familiar with that, so we're tied in with that. And then for all those that are hardcore data managers, we're going to be putting this all on cataloging all the data products, the new data products at least on data.gov in the future. And also what Matt Kales referred to, stay tuned in July or August, we hope to have the new conservation design layer up on the Sagebrush map too. So now I will hand it over to Tate to demonstrate the content library.
Thank you, Matt. You see my screen?
Yep.
Good deal. So there's 3 different ways that you can navigate content within the content library. And the first way that you can search for items is by simply using the search tab near the top of the screen. Another way, the second way, to search the content library for different products is by using the 4 tabs located beneath the search bar. Those tabs are all, data, documents, apps, and maps. And the third way to search for different products is by simply using the filters on the left-hand side. There's multiple different filter types that includes content type, source, categories, tags, and last updated. An example that I'll dive into is a layer for the Sprague's pipit. So as we click on that, it'll bring it into this interactive map. You can see on the left-hand side that there's a brief summary and then a button to click on View Full Details. When you click on the full details, it expands out and shows you a summary along with other options on how to view the map. And then as Matt had just presented, one way to link up or find information in ScienceBase, this also has a direct link to ScienceBase as well, where you can download that data. I'm going to navigate back right now to the content library. And so that's a very brief overview of different ways that you can search the content library for different content. Of course, as Matt Kales mentioned, this content library is not static in nature. Partners will be able to contribute different products as they become available, and this will continue to grow in perpetuity because the future is bright. So with that, that's all I have, and so I'll move into questions and comments. Mary, would you be willing to look through the chat right now and see if we have any questions in the chat?
Yeah, I'd just like to tell folks, if you have any questions, you're welcome to type it in the chat, or you can unmute yourselves. If you can't unmute, maybe just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Probably be the best way to do it. We have a lot of people on. And Ryan, I saw that you're in the audience. If you have anything to add, Ryan is one of the aggregators. Feel free to speak up too.
Yeah, nothing to add. Good job on the presentation.
Yeah, nice to see you. Yeah, so guys, that was a great, we got done in 30 minutes. It's short, but at least it, provides the audience, you guys, with just an overview of what's going on and how you can use the portal. And we're also, open to any questions after this. If you don't have questions now or comments, you can be in touch with us. So I don't know, one's chatted anything. Anybody want to have a question they want to raise their hand and I can unmute you?
Looks like we got one in there from Andrew. What are the sideboards for the type of data that might be included on this platform? Yeah, maybe John and Matt can chime in here too, but that's a good question. as far as in the content library, that's pretty loose. You know, if you know, as long as a couple other people on these teams think it's you know, agree that it's worthy, we can definitely put it in the content library, whether it's a layer or data or maps or story maps. As far as what makes the cut into the interactive maps, that's a little more restrictive, where we'd have to get consensus from folks, and then of course Matt and John would have to give the final say.
Yeah, Matt, the only thing I would add to what you just said is, well, I appreciate the, well, I guess the shout out as coordinator. You know, I serve on behalf of a team, and I think the input, the set provided to the aggregators was just that, you know, team input. And so I have perspective, but we have a diverse team, cross-cutting team. And I think my hope, my understanding is this is an iterative product, an adaptive product, like all our work in Sage and Grass. And some of those questions that you're raising, I think those are things we can continue to evolve. The one other thing I'd say is, you know, I think we envision this in concert with the aggregators and our teams being a fairly technical resource, right? It's important to share communication info, press releases, and good news stories. I think there's a lot of success underway in both landscapes and a lot of challenges, and we want to talk about that openly. But we don't see this as the sole venue, at least in Sagebrush, for, you know, aggregating press releases or things like that. It's much more about these technical, these spatial products that I think hitherto we've all kind of struggled to find in one place and share. So.
Thanks, Matt. Hannah asks in the chat, how long did it take to pull this all together? Just curious. Yeah, we should have tracked our hours. It took a while to process. We developed a needs assessment, a simple needs assessment, worked with the ecosystem teams to get their input. Because we didn't know for sure that the ArcGIS Hub was the right platform, but we had an idea that was the best approach. And so we got a lot of feedback. Then we had people review it. Well, no, then we had to build it and get all these resources and the metadata and put all that together. And so that took a lot of time, and it got to this point. I can't even begin to say how much time. Matt Heller or Tate or Ryan, anybody want to guess that or estimate?
Yeah, I should have been more prepared. I think, did we start this process maybe a year ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
About that, and like Mary said, you know, we had kind of an idea that the ArcGIS Online Hub technology would be the right fit, but we didn't want to charge down that until we did at least a rough needs assessment and get everybody's you know, needs outlined too. So we tried to be not extremely methodical, but you know, just have some bases covered. So, but yeah, and then you know, a lot of the time, you know, Mary has been putting in is the kind of the web designer part has been you know, significant, and then also all just, you know, for those data managers out there, just the cataloging of metadata and bird dogging it to make sure that you get that it's compliant with all of our Fish and Wildlife Service acceptable use policies and beyond that too. So
one thing I would add is you know, it doesn't cost anything. For one, we have an account through the Fish and Wildlife Service. That's a big plus. And the secondly is we split up the work among Fish and Wildlife Service programs. So that helps take the load. Matt and I and a couple other Baileys from Science Applications, and then Tate and Ryan are from other Fish and Wildlife Service programs. So then we're trying to share the love around the programs, because it does take some work.
it looks like we have a hand up.
Yeah, Kathy, let's see. Can you just unmute yourself, or do I have to unmute you?
I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Kathy Griffin, the Sage Grouse Coordinator for Colorado, and this looks awesome. It looks really great. I appreciate all your work. I'm curious, looking at the Sagebrush page, you've got the Utah Sage Grouse seasonal habitats, and I just looked at that a little bit, and it's got a lot of information in there. Are you expecting and or desiring for each state to have something like this? And I'm curious why Utah has one. So is that your desire that all states do something like this?
The person, Joe Moore, who's not here today, he's on the team, and he's the one that checked with Utah to see if they were okay with us putting on the portal. So that's all I can say about that resource. And if other states have something similar, that's great. Again, we're willing to share people's work, but we don't have any expectations.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just reiterate that, Mary. I don't know that we necessarily have any expectations that people should, but we're providing the service as a place and people want to share information. And this is the place that the Fish and Wildlife Service will be sharing information so it's readily available for us and our partners. But personally from the Grassland side, I have no expectation that any of the states will do anything associated with the portal. It's an opportunity.
It's a volunteer program. All right, we don't have any questions, so we can just wrap things up unless Matt Heller or Tate or Kales or Carlson, any last words?
Good.
Sure, we're good to go.
I would like to follow up. I mean, Matt did this early on, and just to say thank you for all the work that you guys have put into this and providing this opportunity for us in the service to share information with our partners. And great job, you guys. Thank you.
You bet. Happy to help for the greater good. So you guys, it's 20 minutes to the hour. We give you 20 minutes back. I hope you have time to squeeze in a walk with your dog or your kid, or work on your dance moves if you were here for the happy dance video. Thanks again, everybody, for attending. If you'd like to get a hold of us, I think Matt was going to throw up the contact us page. It's on the portal. It's easy enough to find. Please don't hesitate to go to the portal, get our emails, or if you're within Fish and Wildlife Service, or you can just, type in our names and we'll appear in the mail. But those outside the service, feel free to contact any of us. We'll be happy to chat with you.
And provide feedback, right? We're looking for ways to improve this for practitioners. So any suggestions would be more than welcome as well.
Thanks, John. Great. All right, everyone, enjoy your day, and maybe we'll see you again.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, everybody.